Former President Bill Clinton now joining calls criticizing the process. He's appeared in a series of photos that his spokesperson called selective releases, implying wrongdoing against someone repeatedly cleared. Now urging the Justice Department to release anything that remains related to the former president to promote transparency over insinuation.
We are watching one of the most surreal political brawls in modern American history, and at the center of it is Jeffrey Epstein. What makes this moment so disturbing is not just the subject matter, but the players involved and the way they are using it. Bill Clinton has gone on the offensive against Donald Trump over the Epstein files, and not in some lurid or sensational way, but through something far more dangerous politically. Formal letters, public statements, and a direct demand that Trump's Justice Department release everything. It is calculated, aggressive, and openly confrontational. This all detonated after House Republicans issued subpoenas to Bill and Hillary Clinton, demanding closed-door depositions under oath as part of their Epstein investigation.
Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton say that they will not comply with a congressional subpoena tied to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. In a letter released yesterday, the Clintons called the subpoena legally invalid and politically motivated.
The response from the Clintons was extraordinary. They flatly refused to comply. Instead of negotiating or slow-walking cooperation, they sent back a 4-page letter that essentially told Congress to take a hike. The letter accused the committee of running a process designed not to uncover the truth, but to manufacture a perjury trap that would result in their imprisonment. A former president and a former Secretary of State openly accusing Congress of attempting to jail them is not normal. It is unprecedented and deeply destabilizing.
In a letter released on social media, the Clintons have slammed the probe as legally invalid and accused its chairman of shifting focus away from the Trump administration's lack of action. They say they've tried to prove what little information they had to help with the investigation, which they describe as a partisan exercise.
Congressional subpoenas are not symbolic. Defying them can lead to contempt charges and criminal referrals. The Clintons clearly understand that risk and are choosing to take it anyway. Their calculation is simple. They believe walking into a closed-door deposition run by Trump-aligned Republicans is more dangerous than fighting the subpoena in court. Given the history between Republicans and the Clintons, and given the broader context of a Trump Justice Department that has openly called for Clinton prosecutions in the past, that fear is not irrational. In a sealed deposition, every word can be weaponized. Any inconsistency, no matter how minor, can be framed as a lie.
I think it's very disappointing. As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
The Clintons are betting that public defiance is safer than private testimony. But what makes this moment explode is that Clinton did not stop at refusal. He went on offense. His spokesperson issued a statement accusing Trump's Department of Justice of selectively releasing Epstein documents in a way that makes it obvious someone is being protected. That is a direct allegation of a federal cover-up, not incompetence, not delay, protection. Clinton is openly accusing Trump's DOJ of hiding information to shield powerful people. Then Clinton himself escalated it further. On camera, he said there is no need for protection and demanded that the Justice Department immediately release any remaining Epstein documents that reference him.
No, I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago.
Full transparency, no redactions, everything. And in the same breath, he made it clear that the same standard should apply to Donald Trump. That is not defensiveness. That is a political challenge. The brilliance of the move is that it boxes Trump in. Trump has spent years branding himself as the transparency candidate on Epstein, promising to expose elites and release the files. In reality, he fought transparency for over a year and only released documents when forced. Now Clinton is calling his bluff. If Trump's DOJ refuses to release everything about Clinton, it looks like they are protecting Clinton, which makes no political sense for Republicans.
Many lobbing parting shots against the Justice Department for not releasing the full files on sex offender Jeffrey Epstein by last Friday's deadline set under the Epstein Transparency Act.
If they do release everything about Clinton, they must also release everything about Trump. And Trump does not want that. Clinton has turned transparency itself into a weapon. This confrontation is unfolding just as the Justice Department released what it claims is the final massive Epstein document dump. 3 million pages, thousands of videos and images, everything they say they have. And as journalists and researchers comb through it, the same two names keep appearing: Trump and Clinton. Flight logs, emails, party references, social events. The documents make it impossible for either man to credibly claim they barely knew Epstein. Both were in his orbit for years. Both benefited from access to his plane, his parties, and his social network. The Justice Department insists that the files contain no criminal evidence against either man and that no charges are forthcoming. There is no smoking gun, no prosecutable offense. And that may be legally true, but politically, the damage is unavoidable. These documents confirm relationships that both men downplayed for years, and in the eyes of voters, proximity to a convicted sex trafficker is corrosive, whether or not it meets the standard for indictment. Trump's hypocrisy becomes glaring in this context. He is pushing Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate Bill Clinton. He is encouraging House Republicans to dig deeper into Clinton's Epstein ties. He wants hearings, subpoenas, and public spectacle. At the same time, he spent a year blocking the release of documents about his own relationship with Epstein. He wants accountability for Clinton without accountability for himself. Clinton's response flips that dynamic. His team insists he has nothing to hide, that the documents show no wrongdoing, and that full transparency would vindicate him. Whether that is entirely true or not, the political framing is effective. It casts Trump as the one afraid of sunlight, the one manipulating the justice system while shielding himself. It reframes the scandal from Clinton and Epstein to Trump hiding Epstein evidence. The result is something close to mutually assured political destruction. If Trump pushes harder against Clinton, Clinton escalates demands for full transparency that implicate Trump. If Clinton presses too hard, Trump weaponizes the Justice Department. Neither can fully destroy the other without taking themselves down in the process, and that stalemate protects both men from real accountability. For Epstein's victims, this is a bitter reality. The spectacle is not about justice for them. It is about power. Two former presidents are using a dead sex trafficker as a political bludgeon against each other while ensuring that neither faces meaningful consequences. The public gets documents and drama. Victims get no closure. This entire fight is also a massive distraction. Trump is facing collapsing approval ratings, legal setbacks, immigration chaos, and economic pressure. Epstein is a convenient pivot. It energizes his base, shifts the narrative, and allows him to attack an old enemy instead of addressing current failures. Clinton, by engaging, helps keep the spotlight there, even as he gains short-term advantage. Legally, the threat to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress is unlikely to go anywhere. They will fight it in court. They will argue the subpoenas are invalid or abusive. The litigation will drag on for years, long past the political moment. It is theater designed to signal toughness, not produce testimony. Politically, the cost is cynicism. Voters are watching two former presidents with documented ties to Jeffrey Epstein accuse each other of corruption while neither faces prosecution. It reinforces the belief that powerful people live by different rules, that accountability is optional at the top, that justice is performative, that cynicism is corrosive. When people believe the system protects the powerful no matter what, faith in democratic institutions erodes. Rules begin to feel meaningless. Trust collapses. All of this is happening on the eve of the 2026 midterms, which makes the motivations transparent. Trump wants to stain Democrats by association with Epstein. Clinton wants to expose Trump's hypocrisy and force damaging disclosures. Neither is primarily concerned with truth or reform. This is about advantage. So where does it end? Likely nowhere satisfying. More investigations, more document dumps, more statements, more accusations, no prosecutions, no real accountability, just endless political warfare conducted over the bodies of Epstein's victims. Clinton's attack on Trump is not a video or a salacious reveal. It is a paper-cut strategy, letters, demands, transparency challenges. But it works because it exploits Trump's fear of exposure. Trump loses no matter how he responds. Clinton does not fully win either, because the documents implicate him socially as well. The result is shared damage and shared escape, and that is the most damning part. Two former presidents with deep connections to a sex trafficking network can fight publicly, release millions of pages of evidence, and still walk away untouched beyond embarrassment. That tells you something fundamental about how broken accountability is at the highest levels of power. This is the political reality we are living in now, a system where exposure does not equal consequence, where transparency becomes a weapon instead of a cure, and where justice is something everyone talks about but almost no one powerful ever faces. And the reason this fight feels so unsettling is because it pulls the curtain back on how power actually protects itself. What we're seeing is not chaos for chaos's sake. It's two political titans who understand the rules of survival in Washington better than almost anyone else, maneuvering inside a system that rewards stalemate and punishes accountability. The Epstein files are not being used to uncover the truth. They're being used as leverage. Think about how carefully both sides are playing this. Trump is loud, aggressive, and theatrical. But notice what he is not doing. He is not ordering his Justice Department to release everything without condition. He is not volunteering full transparency. He is not saying, "Put my name out there too." Instead, he is selectively pushing investigations, nudging Congress to focus on Clinton, and letting surrogates float accusations while keeping his own exposure tightly managed. That is not confidence. That is containment. Clinton, on the other hand, is playing a more surgical game. By demanding that all files mentioning him be released, he sounds fearless. But he also knows exactly what those files do and do not contain. He knows there is no prosecutable evidence. He knows the damage is reputational, not legal, and he knows that Trump's relationship with Epstein is more politically radioactive with Trump's own base than Clinton's is with Democrats. Clinton is exploiting asymmetry. He is daring Trump to choose between transparency and self-preservation, knowing Trump will almost always choose the latter. This is why the phrase mutually assured destruction fits so well. Neither man wants the blast radius to expand too far. They want controlled explosions, aimed outward. Trump wants Clinton bleeding just enough to keep his base enraged. Clinton wants Trump boxed in just enough to make him look guilty and hypocritical. Neither wants a true reckoning that pulls in donors, allies, institutions, and decades of elite social networks. Because Epstein wasn't an anomaly. He was a node. And pulling too hard on that thread unravels far more than either of them wants exposed. That's why the Justice Department's statement that there will be no charges is so revealing. Legally, it closes the door. Politically, it leaves the window wide open. No charges means no courtroom, no sworn testimony under cross-examination, no final verdict. Just endless interpretation, endless spin, endless implication. That ambiguity is oxygen for political warfare, and ambiguity is deadly for public trust. To the average voter, this looks like confirmation of the worst suspicions. Powerful men flew on Epstein's plane, attended his parties, enjoyed his access, and then walked away clean. Meanwhile, ordinary people face severe consequences for far less. That disconnect fuels disengagement. It feeds the idea that justice is selective, that institutions exist to manage scandals, not resolve them. This is especially dangerous heading into an election cycle. Trump thrives on cynicism. The more people believe the system is corrupt, the easier it is for him to argue that only he can burn it down or bend it to his will. Clinton, intentionally or not, is feeding that dynamic by engaging in this public duel instead of stepping aside and letting the facts stand on their own. And let's be honest about something else that rarely gets said out loud. Congress does not actually want full truth either. If they did, hearings would not be closed door. Subpoenas would not be selective. The scope would not be limited to two famous names. A real investigation would look at enablers, financiers, institutions, law enforcement failures, and international networks. That is not happening. What is happening is spectacle designed for cable news, social media clips, and fundraising emails. The Epstein story has become a mirror reflecting whatever the viewer already believes. If you hate Trump, you see proof of his hypocrisy and corruption. If you hate Clinton, you see proof of elite Democratic rot. And if you hate the system altogether, you see confirmation that accountability is a myth. Everyone walks away reinforced, not enlightened. That is the real tragedy here. Epstein's crimes were real. His victims were real. Their suffering was real. But their stories are now buried under a mountain of political strategy and ego. The focus is no longer on how such a network was allowed to operate for so long or how institutions failed so spectacularly. The focus is on which former president can land the better punch. And because both men are masters of survival, the most likely outcome is exhaustion. The public will tire. The headlines will fade. Another scandal will take its place. The documents will sit in archives, cited occasionally, argued endlessly, but never fully reckoned with. Trump will move on to the next outrage. Clinton will retreat back into strategic silence once the moment passes, and the system will reset, unchanged. That is why this moment matters, even if it leads nowhere concrete. It shows us, in stark terms, how accountability dies. Not in dramatic cover-ups, but in calculated stalemates. Not through secrecy alone, but through selective transparency. Not because no one knows the truth, but because too many powerful people know just enough to protect themselves. So when people ask why nothing ever seems to change, why scandals pile up without consequence, this is the answer. Power does not collapse under exposure alone. It collapses when exposure is paired with courage, consistency, and consequences. And right now, none of the people driving this fight are interested in that outcome. What we are watching is not justice unfolding. It is damage control at the highest level, dressed up as accountability. And until that changes, the Epstein story will remain what it has become. Not a reckoning, but a weapon. And that's the part that should make everyone deeply uncomfortable, regardless of party, because once you strip away the personalities, what remains is a system that has adapted to scandal instead of being threatened by it. Exposure is no longer fatal. It's just another phase of the news cycle, another tool in the arsenal, another way to wound an opponent without ever risking yourself. Trump understands this instinctively. He has survived by turning every accusation into counter-accusation, every investigation into proof of persecution. Epstein fits neatly into that pattern. By pushing Congress to subpoena the Clintons, he reframes the story from who enabled Epstein to why are Democrats protecting one of their own. It doesn't matter that Trump's own name appears repeatedly in the same documents. What matters is narrative dominance. As long as his supporters believe Clinton is the real villain, Trump escapes meaningful scrutiny. Clinton understands something just as important. Silence no longer works. In a media environment driven by suspicion, refusing to engage reads as guilt. So instead, he flips the script. He demands openness, not because he believes transparency will cleanse the system, but because he knows Trump fears it. Clinton is betting that Trump's resistance to full disclosure will speak louder than any document ever could. That is why this fight is so corrosive. It rewards the most cynical instincts on both sides. It teaches future leaders that the way to survive scandal is not honesty, but leverage, not accountability, but counter-threats. If you have enough dirt on your rivals, you don't need innocence. You just need balance, and balance is the enemy of justice. Look at what's missing from this entire spectacle. There is no serious discussion about reforming how powerful people are investigated. No bipartisan push to examine why Epstein received such lenient treatment for so long. No reckoning with how law enforcement, prosecutors, and politicians across multiple administrations failed catastrophically. No structural changes, no safeguards, just finger-pointing. Even the language used is telling. No criminal charges, no prosecutable evidence. Those phrases may be legally accurate, but they quietly shift the moral frame. They suggest that if something isn't indictable, it isn't worthy of consequence. That's a dangerous standard. It ignores power dynamics, influence, and the ways proximity alone can enable harm. It reduces accountability to the narrowest possible definition. And while Trump and Clinton spar, another lesson sinks in for anyone watching closely. Survival is about staying indispensable. Trump remains indispensable to his base. Clinton remains indispensable to a wing of the Democratic establishment. That insulation protects them in ways ordinary people can't even imagine. Epstein's victims never had that protection. They were disposable. The men who orbited Epstein were not. This is why cynicism keeps growing. People don't stop believing in democracy overnight. They stop believing after watching the same pattern repeat again and again. Scandal, outrage, promises, distraction. Nothing changes. And each time, faith erodes a little more. If there is any difference this time, it's that the spectacle is so naked, so unfiltered. Two former presidents openly daring each other to release dirt, knowing full well the system will shield them both. It's not subtle. It's not hidden behind decorum. It's raw power politics. And that may be the final irony. The Epstein case was supposed to expose how secrecy and privilege allow abuse to flourish. Instead, it has exposed how exposure itself can be neutralized when enough powerful people are implicated. When everyone has something to lose, no one is willing to burn the whole structure down. So the story limps forward. More documents, more statements, more outrage, and then eventually, silence. Until the next crisis, until the next scandal. Until the next reminder that in this system, accountability is optional for those at the top. That's where we are. Not at a moment of reckoning, but at a moment of recognition. Recognition that the fight we're watching isn't about Epstein anymore. It's about who controls the fallout. And as long as that's the case, justice will remain just out of reach. Always promised, never delivered.